All right, everybody. I've got another very special guest for y'all. Returning guest, Mr. Will Allred. Welcome, Will.
Hey, it's good to be back.
It's good to chat with you again. It's been a minute, but it's just the way things go, I guess. I got to ask right off the bat, though. You've got this fantastic backdrop to your recordings right now with all your. I assume you're a big Green Lantern fan.
Very much so, yes.
The portrait of the dog, is that your pup?
That is Otis, and he tolerates me, so he's a basset hound. My wife, he loves my wife. He tolerates me, but the boys got her this painting. You could get your dog painted into, and this one's called the Ambassador, and he's a basset hound, so we call it the Ambassador. So because we like playing, puns and everything. But yes, he is a majestic basset hound who my sole purpose in life is to be support staff too. At least that's what he thinks.
I know the feeling. You can see in the background a little cat moving around, and she's the queen of the castle, and she just right now is like, yeah, these comics aren't important. I'm going to lie on them. So
exactly.
No, it's phenomenal. I love. So it seems like you were like me. I have become a big fan of omnibuses over the past couple of years, and I see all the Green Lantern omnibuses.
It is, and honestly, it's so cool. I mean, thinking back to when I grew up, and if you missed an issue, you missed an issue, right? Going off of the spinner rack at the the local drugstore or whatever. And now you can get these huge chunks of story, in Otis. Hush up, buddy. You can get these. You can get this, giant collection so that you can read the whole story. And I mean, I like to joke that the reason I wear glasses is because of Mark Grunwald, the official handbooks of the Marvel Universe. Because I would just pour, remember how small the type was in those things? It was just, I would pour over those as a kid, just going through them and everything. It was, I've got those omnibuses over here somewhere. I think they're right over there. I mean, and in the '90s, in the early '90s, when they really started collecting stuff, in hardcovers. I mean, it started in the late '80s, after Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns, the grim and gritty stuff. The DC Archive Project, archive editions of the, comics from the, late 38, 39, and the 40s, 50, or in the 60s and the 70s, and just being able to get books that were way beyond my means as a reader / collector. I would never get to read Showcase 22 unless it was reprinted somewhere. I've got multiple reprintings of it now. I can get to pick and choose which one I want to use.
Yeah, it's so cool that I'm not sure exactly where in the history, because I'm not as much of a history buff in the comics world, but they realized that they had something that needed to be, at one point, was like this throwaway product. Like, I hear stories from my father's generation of yeah, we read them, we threw them out. Like, they were one and done stories. And at some point they realized, no, these need to be kept. And you hear stories I hear about Marvel all the time, because I'm more of a Marvel fan, but they've got this giant library of basically every comic they've ever created. And that helps them be able to reproduce and reprint these. And even though some of them may be expensive or hard to find at times, there's always an availability of some way of these old comics. And just the longevity of them is so cool to see.
Oh, I'm an '80s Marvel guy. I mean, that's what I grew up on. Avengers, Claremont's Uncanny X-Men, Simonson's Thor. Byrne on the Fantastic Four. I mean, those are the good ones, right?
Yes.
But yeah, and I think a lot of that. So in 84, 80, or 85, and 86, you had Crisis on Infinite Earths. You had these big things going on, but you also had Watchmen in '86. You had Dark Knight Returns in '86, and suddenly comics were grown up because they used swear words and people died a lot, whatever. I mean, Watchmen, don't get me wrong, is an achievement. I mean,
yes,
the way that Moore and Gibbons control every single bit of that that narrative as it goes through. I mean, it's you can study it and study it. I mean, it's dark. It is, of course, very dark. But I mean, and you look at Miller's Dark Knight Returns, what he's doing with the art, and he's leaning into some things that I think Miller Moore and Gibbons were leaning into too. But then after that, we were met with, my opinion, of course, a lot of people that copied the style, but not necessarily the substance. There is substance in those books, which is why they endure. You don't be dark just to be dark. But since that point, that's where, Watchmen has been continuously in print for closing in on 40 years now, which is why Moore doesn't work for DC. But anyway, that's a whole other story.
Yes.
And I would say probably the same thing for Dark Knight Returns. Those two books really kicked off this, this idea of I don't want to say these are the good comics that you should have, but more of a people want to keep these in their library. They read authors. This is another thing that they could have in their library, which I love books.
Yeah.
So I think that was really kind of the turning point, and it was great to see a lot of those books as they came out. You're like, heck, I could finally read, all of Hard Traveling Heroes. I know they reprinted it in issue format, but now I can read it all. I'm going to sidestep here for a second. I understand the importance, and I understand how different Hard Traveling Heroes was by O'Neill and Adams. But as a Hal Jordan Green Lantern fan, it did long-term damage to the character that it took 30 years to recover from, in my opinion. Thank you, Jeff Johns. Anyway.
Just Jeff Johns too,
and the art, and all the artists. I mean, Carlos Pacheco, and all of them. But yeah.
No, it's one of those things where I find, especially with digital, we've got DC, is it Universe Unlimited, whatever their stupid name is, and then Marvel Unlimited. Mm-hmm. While I know a lot of, especially retailers, don't like it, but I know a lot of the old hats in the industry are like, oh, digital, but it's meant to be read in paper or whatever. But just the idea that somebody can pay like $10 or whatever it is now, I'm not sure, and they can go back to any of those books and just be like, hey, what was what was Hard Traveling Heroes? I've heard all about this, but you can't find the issues, and it's DC, so I don't even know if it's in print right now. Probably not. But but it's infinitely available in some format for someone to read. Is just such a cool concept for comics. And I've said for a while, I just think I'm seeing it in manga now, and I get it's a business, but now that things are becoming popular, and you're like, oh, look, I'll give it, for instance, in the manga space, One Punch Man became really popular. Enjoy the series. I think it's fun. But then I found out that same creator made a football comic. I mean, American football manga. You can't find it anywhere. It's impossible. It's not in print anywhere. It's not even digital that I'm aware of. And I'm like, why is that? Why, when you have this guy that blew up, is that not in the pipeline to be like, here's this other thing?
Yeah, it's
I get it though.
It's not only in his best interest as a creator to have all of that work to make more fans so that he can keep working, but it's in the best interest of the people that own the property. If he doesn't own it himself or herself, then it's really in the best interest of them to keep the name and all of that stuff out there so people can keep rediscovering. I mean, I remember there are artists that I was like, they may have worked 30, 40 years ago, and I'm just discovering them today, right? And so being able to go back and get the stuff that they were working on 40 years ago or 30 years ago, that's not only useful to me because I get to enjoy their work, but it's useful to them because they're still making sales off of work that they did 30 or 40 years ago,
I think of Dan Morrow become the
Oh
biggest
God.
thing at DC right now, and that dude's been working for a long time. Like he didn't just come out. I mean, he came out of nowhere, but he didn't just come out of nowhere. He was in the trenches
He's
for a while.
a 10-year overnight success, right?
Yeah, just like all of them.
Yeah, exactly. That
And yeah,
guy,
and imagine if you just couldn't find his work anywhere.
yeah, I mean,
You
and
know, like
that guy is not, he can't be human. He's doing 2 books a month. And
I
they look spectacular. I mean, I love his style so much. He is amazing. And I'm like, how how does do you not sleep, dude? Come on, man. How are you able to do that? That's just crazy.
my 3 or 4 fans know this already, but I'll share it with you. My theory is that he has cloned himself and just has like 3 or 4 clones around because yeah, he does 2 or 3 books a year, but then he does like every cover for everything. Like he's the George Perez of our time in terms of covers. Like you don't have a successful book unless you have a Dan Mora cover, and
I'm
it's
gonna have to
insane.
reach
Like
out
there's
to him
no
one of
way.
these days. Yeah, there is no way. How is he able to do this? I mean, to do it that fast, but at that such high quality, I am amazed. He is truly an amazing artist. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he's probably the best of our time right now. Like the quality and the output is just unreal. I cannot
Hmm.
believe it. And kind of a good little segue here because I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this because we're in a point in
Hmm.
comics where crossovers are a big thing, and this kind of ties into what you're doing. And
Every
Dan
month
Moore is
or
doing
every
that.
issue. Yeah.
And Dan Moore is doing the Batman-Deadpool issue for DC. What's your history with crossovers in comics? Like, have you always been a big fan of them? Has it always been
You
something
know,
that interests you?
yes. It always has. I remember reading about the aborted Avengers JLA project, with George Perez, that and Shooter and all them, that because of politics just died. I'm like, that would have been really cool to see, right? Um, I remember hunting down the an amazing crossover. It's the X-Men Teen Titans by Claremont and Walter Simonson. Simonson is one of my heroes. He's awesome. He's just an amazing artist, right? But there was a long period there. I mean, because that was early '80s, I think, because that's when, believe it or not, kids, New Teen Titans used to be the sell more than the X Men. I know it's
Hmm.
hard to believe, but it did, right? um, but then, in the '90s rolled around, and we got the amalgam stuff, which was cool. Um, We also got what was that, DC All Access, the Marvel DC character that's now an Earth something in DC, and it's a different time and whatever in Marvel. And there was a period there that we got lots of crossovers. I don't think it's as special anymore. I mean, over the last decade, we've had Star Trek crossing over with Green Lantern. We've had the cartoon books crossing over with DC stuff, Huckleberry Hound and all those. I feel like though that this Batman Deadpool and Deadpool Batman seems a little bit of a throwback to like the Avengers JLA, that type of crossover. It's meant to be a big deal, right? And I I am a hardcore, or I was a hardcore Avengers fan. And just when Avengers JLA came out, this was awesome because it was Busiek and Perez, who were on the Avengers book at the time, doing the crossover. And, Perez has such a history with DC. I mean, Crisis on Infinite Earths. He's done a
Hmm.
few things for DC, right?
Couple.
And just to have them come together and that book is an event book. I mean, it is this. It's a big deal, and I feel like a lot of the crossovers that we've had lately, they're not they're not marketed, they're not treated as a big honking deal, and I feel like they've changed that with the Deadpool Batman. This seems like it's big. I mean, you've got Greg Capullo doing the art on the Marvel side, who's a longtime Capullo fan here. And then, of course, you've got Dan Mora, who is awesome on the DC side. I mean, it's this feels different than more recent crossovers to me. Is that fair? Do you agree?
Yeah, because my history, when I was coming back into comics as an adult, the JLA Avengers thing had happened. Or, yeah, because I had to buy the issues later on. And so I saw this giant period of Marvel and DC didn't work together, and now they're owned by Warner and Disney. And in my head, I'm like, this will never happen again. Like, it was a thing that happened. It was fun, and we can go back and read those, but never again. And crossovers were always fun to me. Like, you brought up Star Trek Green Lantern. I always think of Planet of the Apes Green Lantern.
Yeah, that's another good one, yeah.
Yeah, and even recently, when Godzilla is crossing over with Marvel, like, I'm all for that. I remember all the Cartoon Network shows that I watched growing up had like a big crossover, like Crisis, like crossover book for a little while. On. And then when they announced this Batman-Deadpool, and as somebody who's, listen, number one on the internet Deadpool hater, do not like the character, but I saw that and I was just like, well, A, you're bringing Grant Morrison out of retirement. I'm here. But B, just the fact that it's happening, yeah, I'm going to buy it. I'm going to read it. I want to see what's going on. I do agree. I think they made this big push for it. Like, it's the biggest thing ever. And it should be, because it might be the last time in a lifetime that it happens. It could possibly be that.
Yep. Absolutely.
My only hope is that they kind of milk it a little bit. One of the few times where I hope somebody milks something, like, for all it's worth. Give me a few years worth of these. I would also love for it to end in some sort of big crossover. I joked Ultimates versus Absolute would be really cool. But just anything, yeah, some sort of big event.
Well, so I do love Green Lantern, of course. But my favorite character is Quasar. I love Marvel's Quasar. That I have loved that book since I read it when it came out. Mark Grunwald is one of my heroes from a writing standpoint, just what he was able to do with it. And I would love to see, and I would write it, darn it, a Green Lantern Quasar book. That would just be a heck of a lot of fun to do. Because their power sets are so similar, but their personalities are so completely different. You know, it would be fun to play in that shared world. You know, that would be a lot of fun.
And I think it's really cool that they kept secret. I guess spoilers, but it's been about a month. Everybody should have read it. They kept secret logo that they were doing more amalgam inside that book. Like, that's I picked that up and I was like, this is awesome. Like, the fact that you did keep something secret, even with all these big announcements, but also that it was this, of all things.
You know, and that's something I was talking to my wife who's like, whatever, you know, she just listens to me and does whatever because, but I mean, I remember, you remember Thunderbolts #1.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kept a secret. Getting to that last page, spoilers, I'm about to reveal something from a book that's 20 plus years old at this point, but getting to that last page and it's the Masters of Evil, you're like, what the? And they can't, I mean, I don't know that you could keep that a secret today because this was early internet stuff. But I mean, that was just like why did I not? It was completely out of left field. I mean, he'd set it all up perfectly. And it made perfect sense, but you're just like, what the heck? You know, it was kind of mind blowing at that point. And I think that's cool because a lot of the preview stuff, you know, you're writing up they write up what's going to happen in the book, and they give it all away, right? You know, do I need to read the book now since I've read what what it says in the solicitation? Come on, guys. I mean, let's just try to keep a little bit back, right?
Yeah. It's one of the reasons why I love Kirkman's the guy that got me back into comics with The Walking Dead and Invincible and everything. Mm-hmm. And I've followed him ever since and been like a diehard of I will pick up anything he writes just because his name's on the book. And when he did Void Rivals, I didn't even look I read the solicit real quick. It's, oh, cool sci-fi book, whatever. I picked it up. And then that revealed that it's a Transformers book. And all the Transformers fans freaking out because nobody bought it. I'm
I've
like,
got
this
it
is
here.
awesome. This is great. Yeah, like this, I want more of this. And he's done it so many times. I think I Die, Die,
Mhm.
Die. You know, the ending to Walking Dead. Nobody saw that coming. Yeah, that doesn't happen in big corporate comics. But someone like Kirkman's just big enough and has just enough money in the bank where he can pull it off, and he loves the medium so much that he does. And I wish
Absolutely.
more of that would happen, but
Mhm.
you know, comics became a business at some point, man. So
Yeah, and it as a creator, my goal is to really just get the story that I want to tell out there with, my team. I'm not looking to, cash in. And my wife, again, I'm like, hey, we almost broke even this time. That's yay. All right. That's what I'm shooting for at this point. I mean, it's when you think about it, there are probably 50 guys or 50 people. Sorry, there's a lot of women writing for the big two, but maybe 50 people that are able to work for a company and have health insurance and do all the things and make a good living at comics. The rest of us out here in indie comics land, we're doing whatever we can, right? I mean, I have a day job which pays the bills, so I'm able to do this stuff on Kickstarter and pay the art team and pay the letterer and the colorist and all that stuff. And it's not necessarily about how much did I make on the Kickstarter this time or how much did I make last time. It's how many readers did I get? You know, am I close to breaking even? Okay, I can stand to I don't have to break even. I can lose a little bit, but the important thing is to get that story out there so that you know I can move on to the next one. And stupidly, a friend of mine, Kevin Joseph, who's the writer of Tart, we always joke with people, so don't be like us. If you're going to get into comics, start with like a 4-page story. Start with an 8-page story or a single issue. Don't do 20 issue epic. Don't do a 45 issue epic. Because right now I'm on issue 7 of 20. Okay, so it's going to take me a while to get there. But it's the cool thing is that Kickstarter has really allowed indie comics because to kind of thrive. I think because what it has allowed us to do, it fits really well with that serial approach, right? Which is what comics are. I mean, if you're going to do individual issues for a while, you're doing a serial storytelling. Kickstarter makes that. I mean, it's built for that, which has made I think indie comics just that's why we've gravitated to it, and why indie comics. If you look at the comics category on Kickstarter, something like 75, 80%, somewhere in there, of the projects that are launched get funded, which is hugely above the average for any other category in Kickstarter. And that's because, one, the indie comics community is so supportive, and then the indie comics Kickstarter community is also supportive of all the books because it's not really, oh, I've got a book out, so I'm competing against Kevin or I'm competing against Charlie or any of our friends. It's we're bringing people to the platform, and all of those people are backing lots of books. There was the Brandon Sanderson when he came, when he brought his novels to Kickstarter. People were like, "Oh, people are going to spend all their money on that." Kickstarter actually did a report. I mean, because it was like a $20 million project, it was insane, right? But he brought so many new people to Kickstarter, and then those people stayed on Kickstarter and backed these other projects. So there was this add-on effect. It's I know it's trite, but it's true. That rising tide really lifts everybody up. There's more people there. It's awesome.
Oh, I was drastically wrong about big publishers coming to Kickstarter. I thought when you saw Valiant and Boom and all that, I pushed against it hard. I was like, I don't
Mhm.
get why these people need Kickstarter. I don't understand why they're here, and I think it hurts indie comics. And I have since been proven way wrong. You watch some of those backers, and they end up going over to something like your books or
Yeah.
someone else's. Not all of them, yeah, but I
Oh,
do
yeah.
think we have more people on the platform
But
because of it.
Absolutely, and I think that's really a good thing because I'm my book isn't for everybody, and no book is for everybody, right? But the thing about Kickstarter is, and Charlie Stickney of White Ash, who's way smarter than me, he's like, Kickstarter is really this infinite newsstand, right? It's the infinite, so that my book is up there with one of those Valiant books. My book is up there with whatever else is on the platform, and people can find what they want. I mean, Kickstarter does such an amazing job um, of one allowing me to promote the book before we launch. We have a pre-launch page that I can send people to. But then while the campaign's going, at the bottom of if I send out an update, or if Kevin sends out an update, or Charlie, or whoever, down at the bottom it's got 3 projects. Hey, you might like this, you might like this, or you might like this. And that helps. But then also, when you get down to 48 hours left, which that will be Wednesday night for me. 40. We end on Friday on Halloween. At 48 hours, boom, emails go out to anybody that was following the project, right? Hey, it's 48 hours left, don't miss out. They do it again at 8 hours. I mean, it is in their best interest, because Kickstarter is an all or nothing platform, right? You either fund or you don't fund. It's in their best interest for me, for all of us creators, to fund, because they get paid, we get paid, right? So they do a really great job of promoting internally within Kickstarter to other backers, so that your book is going to be in front of people that might be backing something similar. I mean, I think it's one of the reasons that Kickstarter has been so successful, at least for comics, is because once somebody gets into the ecosystem, it's like, oh, you liked that? Well, here's 5 more things that you might like, or here's 10, and oh, cool, I'll check all these things out. It's a really great way for readers to discover other comics that they might like. And I think indie comics has really embraced that, because typically if I send out an update, I'm like, oh, here's 2 campaigns that I'm backing right now, and hey, I think you should take a look at them. I try to, while I'm live, I try to do, and I should do this every weekend, but I usually try to do something like a thread on Blue Sky of, hey, here's what I'm backing right now. Go check these out. And if you want other things, you can check out my book too. Whatever. But I think that's a really cool thing about indie comics in general, is that we're all out. We all want each other to succeed. We really do.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you see that because on your campaign, I see you pledge $1 and you get all these great indie comics, and you see in other ones where it might be a stretch goal for backers, like every 25 backers you get another comic, and they're all digital comics usually. But I think that alone says so much, because I mean, I don't know what the equivalent would be in the mass market, but there's no way that Jed McKay's Avengers is going to sell and be like, if you get this, you'll also get Mark Waid's Justice League. Like,
yeah. You are correct. Well, and it's I think it comes down to just the generosity of the indie comics community, because I can reach out to Kevin, or I can reach out to Charlie, or Cat and Phil, and any of these, any of my friends out here, and say, look, I need an indie comics bundle. Do you guys have anything I can share, or that you want me to share? And they're like, sure, here. And when they are launching it, here, take Crossover Division #1, or take Diary of Night #1, or whatever, something like that. And it's really, really helpful. Or Travis Gibb shares a lot of his books. In fact, I've got 2 of it, I think, previews of his Cthulhu books in the indie comic bundle this time, because we're dealing with Cthulhu this time. But yeah, I mean, it's great, because we really do want each other to succeed, and I think we really try to help each other.
And it's, in that case, I was actually going to bring that up, because that's great cross promotion as well, because I know he's giving away some Cthulhu Invade stuff, but he may or may not have a campaign coming up soon. I believe he talked about it on the show, so I don't think he'll be mind me saying.
Yeah. Travis is awesome.
Yeah, and then people pick this up, and if they are Cthulhu fans, and that's why they're picking up Cross over Division issue 7, hey, here's another Cthulhu book. Check this out. And then when he plops his next month, there you go. There's you can get on that.
Absolutely.
It's yeah. I mean, it's great, and it also just helps the community all together to come together. And for a book like that, where I'm sure, did you ever do a story in Cthulhu Invades?
Honestly, I have not. I'm going to be honest. I'm not a huge horror fan in general, and I I have issues with H.P. Lovecraft in specific as a human, so I never really kind of got into the Cthulhu verse stuff. So, but don't get me wrong, it's interesting to me because I have an English. I have English degrees, so I try to come at this stuff from an analytical standpoint. So I did read, and I always try to read the books, before we do anything on them, because I want to try to get at the themes and see what I can, dissect and all that. But it was, this cosmic dread that, there's been, and don't get me wrong, there are so many people that love it, and that's awesome. But for me, it wasn't coming at it as a fan. It was coming at it more clinically, I think. And, why is this working? How is it working? What can I do in this book to kind of get at that from a much more academic standpoint, I think, than an actual fan of the work, right? Because we've got, Crossover Division is going to be 20 issues. All 20 issues are written. The first 8 are completely edited and ready to go. I'm working on the 9 edits right now, but I know what we're crossing over with every issue from here on out. And upcoming is a book that I genuinely love. I love the John Carter of Mars series by Edgar Rice Burroughs. I mean, to my core, I've got several copies up here. It's one of the things that I used to read to my sons at night. I mean, and we went through those books, I think, like 4 times. Like, yeah, let's do it again. Okay, cool, we can do that. So when I come into that, I'm trying to turn off the, oh my God, I'm getting to play with these characters. This is so cool, and go, okay, well, what are back up. But it's Deja Thors. No, come on, back up, stop. It's it's a fine line to walk, right? There's we've got a Christmas Carol coming up. I think that's like 15 or 16. It's getting to. I admit I have a lot of fun with this because we have this insane cultural heritage that we are just gifted. That I mean, I'm going to ask you a question. I think I know the answer, but you can. Maybe I'm wrong. Have you ever actually read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley?
Long time ago, yes.
Okay, you have. Well, you are one of the few, I think.
Yeah.
But I can go up to anybody in the street. Hey, do you know what happens in Frankenstein? Oh, yeah. We can talk about it's Frankenstein's monster. No, we can have that, whatever. But we're soaked in that culture because people will know about Frankenstein. They'll know about A Christmas Carol. They'll know about Dracula. They'll know War of the Worlds because it's just part of our culture, and they've never actually read the books. And I just think that's so fascinating because we can go back then and look at the thing that, I mean, if you've ever read Dracula, it's an epistolary novel. It's about people writing letters to each other. Like, how is that exciting? Well, they survived because they wrote the letter, dude. So, it's such a different way, and I like to kind of play on that a little bit with, like, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That was issue number 5. Most people have this idea of Jekyll and Hyde, which I think differs a little bit from what happens in the book. So I try to stick as close to the books as humanly possible, and play off of that stuff. So I don't know. I just think it's we have go out to I mean, not Wikipedia, but go out to Project Gutenberg, and all of this, this heritage. You've got the works of Shakespeare, you've got the Greek poets, you've got uh, everything from the poets of the Romantics. You've got all of this stuff out there that is our cultural heritage that influences us in ways that we're not even aware of at times. I think it's pretty cool, which is why I love the public domain. Yay, public domain.
Yeah, I wish Disney didn't bastardize it.
Yeah.
No, so most of my life, I knew people who loved H.P. Lovecraft stuff, and I never actually sat down and read it. In probably the past 5 or so years, I became more of an audiobook guy because comics had taken over so much of my life that to sit down and read, I was mostly reading comics. So when I was at the gym or I was out on a bike or something, I would put in audiobooks. So this is my awkward H.P. Lovecraft story. So I bought an audiobook that was all of his stuff, quote unquote, all of his Cthulhu stuff put in one. And I'm at the gym, and I think it was the Rats in the Wall story where his cat is involved. If you know, everybody, because a certain word pops up in that story many times. And I think I counted, it ended up being like 37 in a short story. Yeah. So I'm at a gym, and you're surrounded by different people of different colors and all kinds of stuff. And that word is constantly bickering in my ear over and over again. And then you look it up, and the guy who's reading it is like us, it's some white guy. And I'm like, dude, I get like keeping it for prosperity, but it's rough. It's hard. Yes. And then it got me in this place where I'm like, man, Lovecraft is so popular, and especially in our medium, in comics. And there's such this, and you read up about the guy, and he's just a terrible person. And there's such this thing behind it that's so evil. And it always rubbed me the wrong way. I never actually finished it, to be fair, honest. Like, that story took me out.
It's really difficult. I mean, I see this in comics a little bit today too, because there are stories that are hugely important to me by people who I fundamentally disagree with on, things like human rights and things, right? So it's, how do we as readers or fans, how do we separate the art from the artist? Can we? Should we? I mean, and this is I don't know the answer, to be honest. Because there are creators that I will not buy from today who have done work in the past that, again, is hugely important to me. And I'm kind of on the wall. This story matters to me, and it matters for lots of, I think, good and important reasons. But I can't support this creator now because I find their beliefs, odious. So how do we walk that tightrope? And I'm human. I try to do my best, but I'm sure I could probably always do better.
In this world, it can never be perfect. I mean, When we talk about that, I always think about one of the most important writers of my life, like a guy that really got me into reading novels as a young kid. And to be fair, a teacher handed me this book, so that teacher is more important in the story than this author. But who's had we'll just say a rough history with the gay community, which is Orson Scott Card.
Yes.
Dude, Ender's Game in that series is one of my favorite books of all time. One of my favorite series of all time. I love that man's work. A little rough on the, he could calm down the Mormon stuff a little bit.
Somewhat, yeah.
But yeah, so I get that back and forth. I think the problem with the H.P. Lovecraft one was that it was so blatantly in the story. That word carries so much division and hate. And
and it's we also have to, and one of the things that I do in crossover division is I include a page where I just do a short little essay. Here's the writer, here's the book, here's when it was published, here it was published by, here's where it's been adapted, because hey, if you think it's cool, and you want to find out more, here are the places that you can go. Check it out in Project
Yeah.
Gutenberg, things like that. But it's really, really important, I think, to place these works historically. I don't think
Yes.
that that's a cop out. I don't think it's a cop out. I think sometimes it's used as a cop out. But I think it's very important because our mores and our opinions have changed over time. And while I think we should still be able to completely mock closed-minded, opinions from earlier, we have to at least acknowledge what the culture was like, the dominant culture at the time was like, at that point in time, because that's what these artists are swimming in, right? So it's give and take, right? I mean, I think Lovecraft went way above and beyond the mores of the time.
There,
But that's just me.
are you watching Peacemaker by any chance? And I promise I'm bringing this in.
Um, I saw the Suicide Squad movie. Gunn is kind of hit and miss. I think my wife and I watched the first episode and we're like, okay,
Okay,
we're gonna watch something else. Yeah.
there's a point I want to make here with season 2 because I think that people have, and it ties into what you're saying, because I think people missed it when they were watching it, as most people do when they watch these things because they're trying to escape. But they're going to Earth X in this, and as a DC fan, you know Earth X, and there's a moment where Peacemaker's father, who in our regular universe is a devout racist, and that was a whole thing with the first season, was his like issues with his father, and he gets there and we find out it's Earth X and his father's completely different in that world, and he has this moment where somebody's like, oh well, I'm going to take that from a Nazi, and he just looks at the person and goes, do you fight every injustice in your world? He goes, I'm just trying to do the best I can with the world I was handed.
Mm-hmm.
And if I left this world 1% better than it was when I left, or when I was here, that's all I can do as a man. And that moment hit me really hard because that was the guy who was the evil villain in the first season. And we see him being the guy spitting truth. And what people don't understand when you hear things like man of his time, or just people that are trying to do their best in what they were given. And what you're kind of saying with that, yes, Lovecraft went too far with some of it, but we hear that a lot. And while it can be a cop out, it is a very important thing to remember when you're talking about people in history.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we find ourselves in history at the moment too. So
someday we'll be history, and there'll be some things that happen today, some that we are very obvious about, some that aren't so obvious about. People are going to look back and be like, why'd they deal with that?
Why?
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, bringing it all together, we've kind of danced around crossover division a little bit. So I let people know what's the series all about for you? Like you're 7 issues in. What's your kind of pitch to the new people out there?
So it's a chance for Will to play with public. No, it's not. Okay. The high level pitch is that reality is fracturing. Our stories are becoming real, and only an English professor and a research librarian have the smarts and the knowledge to save us from an unhappy ending. Okay, so that's kind of the overall pitch. What I wanted to do with it was, and I don't know that I have. I'm sure there are much more talented creators that could do better, but you do what you can with what you got. I really want to get at, we have this interesting relationship with fiction, and I wanted to pick at that a little bit because, I mean, if you look at, there are things in the world that are built upon, that people take as this is the way it should be, that are built upon a lie, for instance. Well, that means that's not the truth. Why is it that way? Why aren't we dealing with the truth? And I mean, fundamentally, crossover division is about truth, right? But how lies? I mean, I give it away on the very first page of the very first issue. I have my English professor telling you, let's see, he's basically telling them to always, check their sources because lies are insidious and they will infect you and change how you see the reality. Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. But ultimately, it's a chance to deal with that tension between fiction and reality and what fiction does for us, I hope, and a way for me to go back and look at some of these works and kind of maybe take a step back and see, these were really influential. They're really cool. And maybe show why they're really cool to a modern audience, right? One of the things that's really, really influential on me is Planetary by Warren Ellis and John Cassidy. And he's doing something similar with his, with the team, with the Planetary team. He's like, hey, this concept is cool. And his quote is, scrape away all the dog shit, pardon my French, and show why it's cool. And I think I'm trying to do that to a certain extent with a lot of these, literary things that are going on. Why is this so cool? Why does it matter? And why should it matter, to today's audiences? So, and of course have a, rollicking sci-fi kind of adventure too. So it's hopefully hitting on a good day, maybe 2 out of 3. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, yeah, and you go through your previous 6 issues and you see the different things you're doing with it.
Yeah.
It's obviously, you can go back and see, even in our medium, in comics, I mean, Dracula, Shakespeare, Hyde and Jekyll, all obviously have had characters that were influenced by these things that we still read today.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Well, and I'm also a huge fan of, and I can't even remember his name now because I'm completely blanking, The Time Machine, War of the Worlds by...
Orson Welles?
No. H.G. Wells. Thank you.
H.G. Wells, yes.
Yeah, wow. I'm such a fan I couldn't remember his name. Whack. All right.
We got there.
We got there. So you'll see Wells pop up multiple times as the series goes along. So he's done the War of the Worlds. That was our first issue. Issue 6, which I actually just got the books in yesterday, so I'll be fulfilling issue 6 like right this coming week. I'll be sending out copies to all the backers. But that was The Island of Dr. Moreau, which is an H.G. Wells work. So, science fiction has always kind of been what I'm more interested in versus the fantasy stuff. But Wells as kind of the father of modern science fiction is, I think, a really important figure. And so I'm, I get to play with some of his works, which I think, are soaked again. People are like, War of the Worlds. Yeah, I know what a Martian tripod is. Or I know the Invisible Man. It's.
Were you concerned launching when you hadn't fulfilled the last campaign?
My goal is always to try to do it before, but not really, because I've always fulfilled, and it's just getting the books back. I typically would have waited, but there were some external scheduling things that we had to go on when we launched. When we did Tuesday, what was it? September 30th, I think, was the launch day. Whatever. So I knew I had to launch then. Little stuff happened to kind of slow down some things, but we've delivered on every issue so far. I wasn't too concerned about it. And this one, I'll have this one delivered probably within the next couple of weeks, and then by that point, we'll be a week past the end of issue 7. And the cool thing about issue 7 is the line art is all done. The colorist just has to come back through and work. Ryan has to work his magic, and Ryan Kroboth's an amazing colorist. And then, of course, Brant Fowler is our letterer. But Pablo's finished the art. He's actually waiting for me to get issue 9 edited properly so that he can start on it right now. And then Alice Leclerc is the artist. We kind of alternate because my goal ultimately would be to be able to get 4 issues done in a year. It's a goal we've not hit yet, but we're trying. But Alice will be starting on issue 8 very soon, I believe. And then hopefully I'll get Pablo started on number 9. And one of the cool things, I mean, this team is great. So actually, so Alice Leclerc, she's a French artist. Pablo Martinena, he is an Argentinian artist. Ryan Kroboth is our colorist. He's over in Pennsylvania, I think. Brant Fowler is a letterer and our designer, and he's down in Texas. And then I've got an editor, James Powell, who I think is up in Colorado. So we're kind of a global team, but we work really well together, and I feel like we're starting to level up as a team and get, I think we're improving as we go, which is what we should be doing, honestly, right?
Yeah, say you'd hope better. So.
Yeah, exactly. So the current issue, Pablo, man, he can draw tentacles, dude. I just like, wow, how long did that take you, man? He's just got a gift for it, I think. But this is the first time I've written a double-page splash, and it's the very center of the book. And Pablo delivered. I mean, he really, really delivered. It's amazing, and I can't wait for people to see it. I don't want to spoil it, but it's Cthulhu, and it's awesome. It really is.
It's great. And do you have what kind of like goodies are people expecting when I mean, you're going to provide the book, assuming someone just gets a cover A with the book, like what's their package look like when you send them out? Are you an overdoer?
I try not to be, but one of the things that I like to do, so of course they're going to get the Indie Comic Bundle. They get their name in the digital edition of the book. I used to do it in the actual books, but people would wait so long that I had to get the issue out, so I couldn't wait. So I decided to do that just in the digital version of the book. And then they'll get the issue, and I do some in-universe stuff. I know it's hokey as heck, but I print out, and it looks like a form letter. Crossover Division's a bureaucracy, right? So I print out a form letter, and I welcome agent, blah, 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 thank you, blah, they get a letter that I sign, and it has the leadership of Crossover Division listed there. And then it has like a regional Pablo's like a regional director, Alice is a regional director, Ryan's like a department head, or, I've got all the people listed there. And then I'm chief of, I'm sanitation. So my name's down there. I'm under sanitation. But one thing I did do in that letter is we have not a book that bleeds between reality and fiction. Things are going to be revealed in the next issue that hopefully people are starting to ask questions about, like, why is this happening? Who benefits from this happening? Why, and what's going on? So there is a deeper mystery that for the first 7 issues, I wanted to keep them pretty much standalone. Issue 8 kind of kicks off some. There's still going to be self-contained issues, but there's going to be some longer subplots that are going to come to a head ultimately, in the final issue, and we're going to figure out, this is why this is happening, this is who's causing it, this is why it's happening, and all those things. Initially, I wanted to stay very, very focused on self-contained issues, which is what we have. The issue 1 through issue 7 are all self-contained. So I do the letter, and then what else do I do? Sometimes I'll throw in stickers if I have them, or temporary tattoos, because tattoos play an important role in the story. As you go up in levels, I've got visitor passes that are, lanyards on a lanyard that are, hey, it's a visitor pass to Crossover Division headquarters. So you can, wear that if you want. I think the coolest thing that we do, though, besides the variant covers, and we'll talk about those in a second, the coolest thing that we do is if you want to be a Crossover Division agent, you can get drawn into a story. Or if you want to be, so whenever a crossover happens, it's because someone is so obsessed and focused on a particular work that they kind of drop into this coma and that world starts to bleed into ours. We call that person the dreamer. You can be the dreamer in an issue. So you can be a crossover division agent or you can be the dreamer. And those are higher price. I mean, those are, really premium tiers, but we've had a few people taken up on that. It's kind of cool. You can be part of the story, blending fiction and reality. Sorry.
Well, yeah, I think for one, people I know really like that. And if you've never done it before, anyone out there listening has never done it before, I've paid for one, but I've just had friends draw me into books, and it's really cool when you're reading the book and you see yourself in there.
Yeah, this was a friend of mine I've known for a lot of years. I didn't draw him into the book, but I needed a detective, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is going to be Detective Nielsen, and I made him so the police officer, she was talking about, yeah, Detective Nielsen is never going to believe this, old curmudgeon or whatever. Yeah, and he enjoyed it. It was fun to do something like that.
Yeah, and
but then,
you do a lot of cool variant covers as well. If you want
yeah,
to shout those out.
yeah, I didn't want to go crazy with variant covers. So what we do is, if Pablo draws the issue, Pablo gets the standard cover. If Alice draws the issue, she gets the standard cover. I strongly believe that should be the case, right?
Real quick, I'm with you on that. I think that's the correct decision for a book. But yeah.
Not all, yeah. So, like issue 7, Pablo does the standard cover. Alice gets to do the first variant. Okay, so it's always going to alternate. Whoever's doing the standard, the other person gets the first variant. So Alice does our first variant, which is a really cool. It's basically got Hector's hand coming up, and it's got tentacles around it, and it's green. It's this really beautiful image, right? Pablo's cover is awesome too. You've got Cthulhu in the background.
Yeah.
But then the cool thing that I like to do is I like to work with other artists just because it's fun. I love working with artists. Are awesome. If you do, there's this trick to get artists to work with you. You give them monies, and then they will work with you. It's awesome the way that works, right?
Crazy.
But I got to work with, let's see, we did Rio Burton. Rio is awesome. She is an amazing artist, and she did our cover C. And then I got to work with Papercat. Papercat works with M.K. Palmer on the Meraki book, and she's an amazing artist too. She did more of a pinup cover for us. And then Federico Sabatini did our final cover. He's done some work for Marvel. He's done some work for Last Emperor Press. I've actually had this cover by him ready to use for over a year, just because it takes us a while to get these issues out, right? But I mean, it is so much fun working with other artists. I've got all the covers except for Pablo's and Alice's, of course. But I've got the 3 variant covers for other artists already done for number 8. And I did not mean to do this at the time. I just really loved this artist's work. But she won the Eisner for Best Cover Artist recently, and I'm not going to say who she is. You can go look it up if you want. But she's doing a cover for number 8 for us. And then I got to work with, on number 2, Jen St. Ange. She's a wonderful artist. She did a variant cover for me, and I reached back out to her recently, and I'm like, I love your work. And she works a lot with Pat Shand on like the cheeky comic stuff, and she's done a lot of work. But I said, I really liked working with you on the cover of number 2. So she's actually agreed to do multiple variant covers for the series until it ends. So she may be that third cover for every issue of 9 through 20. If she has time, she is at least going to do 6 or 7 of them, I think. So that's pretty
Very cool. So
And then it's just wonderful working with different artists because it's everybody works differently and it's fun.
it's cool seeing your creation done different styles too. Like
Absolutely.
you kind of you love the style that your creative team's doing. They're doing a great job at it, but it's kind of cool when someone different comes in and goes, "This is what I would do with it."
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, it's lots of fun, and that's what I mean. Don't get me wrong. Creating a comic from start to finish is a marathon, barefoot over glass sometimes, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's totally worth it. I mean,
So
I get to, and this happened yesterday. We got, the books came in, and I held number 6 in my hand, and I'm like, yeah, there was a ton of work that when Alice worked day and night on this, and so did Ryan and Brant, and there's the cover by Pablo and James, fixed all the stuff that I screwed up. But this started out in my brain, and now here it is, a physical thing that I am holding, and that's just the coolest feeling ever.
I'll say there's no better feeling.
Yeah,
I've done it a
absolutely.
few times. There's no better feeling.
Yeah.
You've been really generous with your time, but I do want to hit on 2 more things,
Oh, okay.
if you don't mind. One, I
Rock
got to
it.
know, has anyone ever taken you up on the Ultimate Variant Collector package? Because, by God, that's a lot of comics.
Yes, it is. I have had 2 people take me up on that, and it's a lot of comics. I mean, you figure number 1 had 2 variants, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 each had 4 variants, right? But then I do a set of the Virgin variants, so no trade dress. So that's 5 more. Yeah, it's a big box, dude. It's a totally big box of comics that I send out.
That's such a cool idea. I absolutely love it. And then something I don't think I've ever seen on another campaign before, and I'm sure you'd love to talk about it. But apparently you plant 1 tree for every backer on a campaign.
Absolutely. And you know what? I cannot take credit for this. The wonderful people over at Onishi Press, they started doing it. I'm like, that because I'm a sustainability, environmentally, conscious kind of guy, and I'm like, that is awesome. Do you mind if I use it? They go, sure, do it. I'm like, awesome. So, yeah. So for every backer I have, I will donate to 1 tree planted. So for every backer, we plant a tree. I think it's pretty cool.
That is really cool. So 1 Tree Planted, they're an organization that does this. You pay
Yep,
them X
absolutely.
and they
Hmm.
plant a tree.
Yep, absolutely. 1 tree for
That's
every dollar.
that's really cool. I love it. Especially, we're printing stuff on paper. We need those trees. So
Exactly. Well, and the other thing that I do too is I back a lot of Kickstarters. I back a lot of Kickstarters. Okay. So the important thing about Kickstarter is making. I'm going to rant for just a second. Okay. I spend a god awful amount of time, blood, sweat, tears, energy in creating this book. I want to make sure it's protected when I send it because I've gotten books from creators who they take the comic itself. They don't even bag and board it. They throw it in a manila envelope and they send it through the mail. I'm like, how could you do that? How could you do that? I mean, no. So I get a lot of Gemini mailers because I back a lot of books, right? Well, I reuse all those Gemini mailers. So not only does it save me money, but it's also a good thing because we're reusing those. And Kevin
definitely.
Joseph of Tart, he actually sent me a issue of Tart back in the Gemini mailer that I sent him, and he wrote a little note. I've come home back to you, Father, from, it's like, Kevin, you're awesome, dude.
It's awesome. Yeah, and that's something that, like you said, does save you money, but it's also great too. Like it's a
Exactly.
win-win across the board. So
Absolutely.
I
Now, if
love it.
somebody
So
wants me not to use one of those, I'll use a brand new Gemini mailer. I've got a stack of them over here, but I just like every little bit helps, right? Every little
hey,
bit helps.
as long as it's in a mailer and you bagged and board the book correctly, um, Russell
Yep.
Notley, I'm calling you out. And that's all I care about, honestly. Like if the book gets there fine, that's great. I think the only people I've ever done the throw it in a it's not really manila envelope, it's more of a hard cardboard envelope, are usually people in UK or Canada, and it's got to go across where they can't do that or there's some issue with doing it. So I'll let them slide.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like I said, super generous for your time. Before we go, anything else you want to say about issue 7 of Crossover Division for the people out there?
I I think that people who are fans of the Cthulhu mythos will enjoy it, and I think people who are not fans of H.P. Lovecraft, the bad human that he was, will also enjoy it. So,
And what I'll say is that if you go on the Kickstarter page, you'll see you can read the first issue for free, everybody. So you can check out the series for free and see if you like it. And then if you're a digital person, the tier to get all 7 issues, well, technically 3 issues in the trade, but all 7 issues is only $18? Yes. So very affordable to catch up on the series if you're a digital person. So definitely check those out. And yeah, if people want to follow you, Will, do you do social media? Are you on there all the time? Where can they find you?
I am on Blue Sky, so Wallred, Wallred on Blue Sky. I'm also on Facebook, but I don't post as much as I should, just because. And I forgot to mention a very important member of the team. Blake Morgan of Blake's Buzz handles a lot of the more markety type stuff for me because I suck at it. And he wants me to post more, and I'm like, but I'm so yeah, he's right and I'm wrong because he knows what he's doing and I don't. But Blake's awesome, and I love working. I mean, again, I love working with the whole team because we're all putting. If this was just me, you would be getting unfiltered Will, right? Which I don't know that would be awesome. Maybe it would. I don't know. But since stick figures are about all I can manage, then it probably wouldn't be that awesome. But every member of the team is adding something. So this is, this thing that we're all building really is better than anything that, just one of us could do alone. So it really is a team project.
Yeah, that's great to hear because not a lot of people would mention the marketing person. And yeah, Blake's somebody I work with behind the scenes a lot, and people know him camera facing as well. But he's just a great dude, and I've always enjoyed talking with him, sending memes back and forth with him, whatever it is. He's just a great guy all around. To everybody out there watching, listening, check out the show notes. I'll have links so you can find all of Will's projects. Most importantly, though, Crossover Division issue 7, the Call of Cthulhu Kickstarter page will be down there. So make sure you go there, check it out. Read that first issue if you haven't read anything, and then back the project. Make sure you check it out. So, Will, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you again, man. I had a blast, and I look forward to next time.
Thanks for having me. Thanks.